everyone, to the HealthyU podcast. I am your host, Dawn Funk, coming to you down here in the panhandle of Florida. And I'm so excited today because we've got an amazing guest who's actually up in Canada, and really have enjoyed just getting to talk with her before the show today. And so we've got Fran Garton, who's going to be talking to us today about strategies for pain-free living. And guys, I have to read her bio. I told her, I'm like, you have so many accomplishments and great things that you've done. And so guys, I just want to read her bio to you just so that you can really, embrace all that she's done and just, the expert that she is when it comes to pain-free living. So Fran Garton is a pain reduction coach for women who want to get rid of pain forever. And through her no BS coaching, which I love that, by the way, and mastery of movement modifications, she adds laughter and fun to your coaching sessions. She shakes up your approach to movement and pain management while making you feel like you've always lived this way. Her adoring fan and customers have called her the caring friend who is ready to give tough love and call you out on your excuses. You are a woman after my own heart, Fran, when needed. And she's also that tiny voice inside your head that is cheering you on. She's the co-author of Body Bliss, The Journey to Body Acceptance, and has been featured on breakfast television's Movin in the Morning, CH Morning Live, Thrive Global, Reader's Digest UK, Mind Medicine Mondays with Delia Beadle. I hope I didn't botch that. What's Up with Jaye, Dela's Voice, Rachel Benton Coaching, Spice It Up with Sandra, Faith and Fitness Magazine, and has spoken at a variety of workshops. When she is not helping her clients achieve their goals, you can find her. This part is the best right here. You can find her hanging out with her furry donkeys and kittens, engaging in old lady cross-stitch addiction, or having a dance party. And you know what? I think it's so cool. And I know you can't see it, but in my house, so I have to tell you this, Fran, I loved cross stitch too. And unfortunately, I haven't done it in a long time, but my mother is still a huge cross stitcher. And all of the pillowcases I rotate, I have 3 of them. All of my pillowcases are personally cross stitched from my mom. And she made me some new ones with lighthouses and like a beach scene when we moved down here to Florida. So I love cross stitch too. And I feel like it's one of those like kind of dying arts that you just don't hear about that people do anymore. And so I love that. I thought that was so cool. And my last name's Funk, so I have to love dancing. And so I thought that was pretty cool. But, before we dive into, just some of the strategies that you're going to equip everyone with for pain-free living, I would just love for our listeners and viewers to get to just hear from you, just anything that you would like to share in addition to that, just so that we can connect with you before we dive in to today's podcast and interview.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. It's super exciting to be here. And as you're reading my bio, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do that. Because sometimes, you talk about yourself or you send information to people and you're like, what did I send you? So I send you all the good stuff. And I'm very happy that I included all of my hobbies. So I love to have fun and I love to laugh. So that I think is really important in life. And it's also important in your wellness journey because sometimes it's difficult. But I am a volunteer with the Donkey Sanctuary of Canada, so I'm going to give them a plug. They are a nonprofit organization. They have been around for 30 years. They are in Guelph, Ontario. So I'm in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. So they're about an hour and 10 minutes from Toronto. And they rescue donkeys and mules who have been neglected or abused, or they've been very well cared for, but their owners are no longer able to take care of them. So I've been volunteering there with them for 5 years now. And so pardon me. So as much as I can, I go and see the donkeys and volunteer and get some love from them. And they're very amazing, compassionate animals. And we call them the forgotten equine because people think about horses, which are the same family. We could do a whole podcast on donkeys, honestly. And so I also, I have personally married the crazy cat lady, my husband, because we rescue and all of our cats that we have been rescued from
Mhm.
various conditions. So yeah, we have five.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay. Oh,
because my husband decided he needed this last one that we just got 3 weeks ago, and she's adorable
oh,
and I love them all, but I love animals. And I said to my best friend, why didn't you tell me I married the crazy cat lady? She's like, you didn't ask me.
yeah.
So there we go. So I love animals of all kind, and yeah, so don't shop, please adopt. Look at
Uh,
your rescue organizations. Even if you can only give $10, give them $10, because that makes a huge difference in the lives of all the
mhm.
animals.
That's so good. Well, and I have to share this. I know I was looking here real quick for my friend on Facebook, but I don't know if you can see this. This is
Oh,
Queenie. Okay. And this is my friend Benji Parr. He's a great friend of mine. He lives in Georgia. And his wife, for his birthday last year, bought him a donkey. And he's always posting all of their adventures together on their farm in Georgia. And I like until he got the donkey, and of course, what you just said, I didn't realize they were such like lovable animals that you could have as like a pet. And he's absolutely loved having a Queenie. But that is so cool. So that's another connection that you and I have. And that I have 4 dogs. So I'm the crazy dog mom. And
okay.
I have 2 rescue puppies, Scooby and Shaggy. And they're about a year and a half old now. They're almost 100 pounds each, but they are brothers. They were left abandoned along with 7 other puppies. In fact, Shaggy is what they called the trash can puppy because the 8 puppies were found abandoned. And then a couple days later, he was found in a trash can by a neighbor. Didn't know if he was going to make it. And no one ended up adopting him. And so when I went to pick up Scooby, because I was only going to get 1 dog, I was like, okay, we'll take him. And so we brought home both of them, and we just love them so much. And so I love what you shared though about just the power of adopting. And because even my kids, we've said we'll never, like, we will always adopt now. I mean, moving forward, being a rescue mom is definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
So
It's
I love
kind of
it.
funny though you say that though, Don, because it's when you like, I feel like with the cats, because we have, a long haired black, Odie, then we have Indiana Jones, his short hair black, then we
I
have
love
an
it.
orange guy, Duncan, and then we
Yeah.
got a fluffy guy, Toopy, and then we have the last one that we got is Fiona, Princess
Yeah.
Fiona.
Oh
She's a
yeah.
But I always feel like when you rescue animals, I always feel it's like tattoos. You can't
Yeah.
have just one.
Yes.
And
I
I always
know.
like, I feel like when you were a kid and you used to collect like comics or
Yeah.
baseball cards, and you'd be like, got it, need it, got
Yeah.
it, need it. That's how I feel with animals.
Yes.
But
Oh,
I just
it's so crazy you say that. Well, because, and we used to only have 1 pet, and that's how it was when my kids were little. But just recently, I've even told my husband, I'm like, we should get one more. I'm like, 4 just doesn't feel like a lot. Like, I feel like we need another little dog. So that's still up for debate. He is not having it right now, but anyways, well, I agree with you. I think we could have a whole podcast just on animals. But you know what? Today we are helping people take control of their health. And for those of you guys that have been listening to prior episodes, again, I just want to thank you for being a listener. But really the heart of this is to help you take ownership of your health and to really just educate yourself. And that's what we're going to do today. Fran has got some great strategies when it comes to pain-free living. And so I just want to kind of dive in first to your story. And you have fibromyalgia. I know that's something that a lot of people are diagnosed with. I know I have a lot of friends that live with fibromyalgia. And so could you just share a little bit about what that is, expand on that a little bit more, and how are you today able to live without pain even though you have that diagnosis? And just share with our viewers about that.
Sure. So fibromyalgia it's lumped into the arthritis family. However, it is not arthritis because it doesn't affect the joints. It is not an inflammatory condition, and it is not a progressive or degenerative condition like other forms of arthritis. But I think they just don't really know what to do with it. So they put it in with arthritis. But basically, fibromyalgia is an autoimmune condition. And the easiest way to explain fibromyalgia is someone who has fibromyalgia has extreme sensitivity to outside stimulus.
Mhm.
So light, heat, touch, even clothing on your body. So textures, smells, hearing, everything, every response that someone who has fibro will have towards those various external input is going to be much more extreme. So imagine, Dawn, if you banged your hand on the table, you banged the top of your hand and you'd be like, oh, it kind of hurts a little bit, and then it would dissipate. But for someone that has fibromyalgia, that could be hours of pain, hours. And it could cause a massive pain flare in other parts of their body. So the extreme response to these outside stimuli is probably the biggest thing for fibromyalgia. And then the other thing is there are 18 trigger points, they're called, or pain points. And so there is no test for fibromyalgia. You can't do blood work or anything like that. There is blood work that will give you inflammation markers and things like that, but it doesn't test for fibromyalgia. So they use this trigger point or these pain tender points system. And when you go to their doctor, basically they'll just touch you. And then, so for me, mine are mostly up in my shoulder, which is a very common area. I also have them in my hips. But like just a light touch, and I'm talking literally like pressure of 1 out of 10 is very intense for me in those trigger points, and for people that have fibro. So that is sort of the essence of what fibromyalgia is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was diagnosed. I'm just thinking, what can I tell you? I was diagnosed about 10 years ago. And if you do a lot of reading on pain and fibro and these kinds of, and other autoimmune conditions, many of them are attached to some kind of trauma. And when I use the word trauma, sometimes people think of things that are very extreme, like assault and sexual abuse. I'm trying to think of the right word. But that's not necessarily what trauma is. Trauma can be something smaller. It can be, a dissolution of a marriage, which is traumatic. I'm not minimizing that, but you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be something that's very aggressive. I, in 2011, 2012, I ended up losing vision in one of my eyes, and I had a migraine, and I was in bed for 4 months.
Oh my gosh.
And it was stress induced from work.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty intense, and to be honest, even to this day, there's very little I remember about that 4-month period, and even a couple years after it, I still don't remember. Like, I have conversations with people, and they're like, "Do you remember you said blah blah blah?" I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." We sat here, they're like, "We sat here and had coffee and talked about XYZ," and I'm like, "I have no recollection." So it really erased that part of my life. So I think that may have been something that triggered the fibromyalgia, but there are so many components. Like, that's the thing when we talk about pain and we talk about pain reduction and pain management, there is a whole entire world of research out there on pain. And the thing with pain is, what I want people to know about this is that your body doesn't know you have pain until your brain tells you that you do. So when people say, well, I have pain, okay, do you? Or, and I want you to think about this. So, for example, a little kid, right? They learn to walk, and they're trying to walk, and then they fall down. And many times they don't cry. They fall, they get up, they look around, they look at the people around them and see what their reaction is. And if you, as the mother, goes, "Oh my God, are you okay?" then the crying starts, because the child is like, "Oh, I might have hurt myself," right? But they don't instantly cry. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
When they're babies, yeah, because they're asking. They're asking for things, like food, to be changed, sleep, whatever, right? But when they get older, they don't really know. So what happens in our brain is the brain, and I'm simplifying this, so for all of the sciencey people that are out there listening, I'm not going into the very specific names and detail. You don't need that, okay? You can do more research on it, but simplistically, what happens is the brain has a catalog of all of our experiences. We love to categorize and catalog things. It makes our brain and our subconscious mind happy. So we have a catalog in our brain. So let's imagine I touch a hot stove, an element on the stove. My brain, my hand does not know it's hot. there's a stimulus on the outside. It sends the message up the spinal column to the brain, and the brain goes, oh, what's that like? Do we have anything in our memory, in our library catalog? Have we done this before or experienced something similar? And the brain goes, yep, we have. It hurt. It caused pain. We don't like it. The message goes back to the hand, and then we go, ow. But it happens in like milliseconds, right? Like, so we don't even know that it's actually processing all that stuff. But that's how pain registers. So when we talk about pain, pain is a construction in our brain. Our body doesn't know it's there until our brain tells us.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like hunger. We don't know. You spend the whole entire day working, and then you're like, oh, I think I'm hungry. I haven't eaten for 8 hours. And then there are other days where you're like, I just ate dinner. You're like, I'm starving. Well, how is it that you just ate? Because you haven't made the connection to eating, or you've been so distracted by doing other things that you haven't thought about food.
Yeah.
But you should be hungry, but your brain hasn't sent the signal to tell your body that you want to eat. So it's a really important thing when we talk about pain. And this is sort of one of the key messages I want your listeners to get, is that they have the power to change their pain story. They have the power to not be in pain. And there are a number of strategies that they can use for that. But the reality comes down to they have to want to do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes people do not. And there are a variety of reasons that they do not want to get out of the pain cycle.
Well, and I think sometimes too, and I hate to say this, I think sometimes people thrive on being the victim, that victim mindset, because they've kind of realized that by being the victim a lot, they get more attention. So, I could definitely see that. But gosh, you've already said so many things, and I know our listeners have heard my story before, just even with my own healing journey and, just overcoming just a lot of things over the last several years. But I have flare ups, and it's interesting. Just recently, I've had a flare up myself, and mine's always back here in my shoulders too. I haven't actually gone to a doctor to do the trigger points, but I would bet I probably, have fibromyalgia to a certain degree. And I get those flare ups. But you're so right that what we think about, we bring about. And, our brains are really, in fact, there's a girl that I listened to her podcast. She does this whole brain rewiring. There's a lot of research. I think it's Annie Hopper. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but read some of her books, and just again about the power of retraining our brain when it comes to sickness and pain. And so you're definitely hitting on some things that I think are giving people hopefully a lot of hope, that we don't have to be living on pain pills, we don't have to be medicated, right? There are other ways, I guess is my point, that you can treat and manage your pain without necessarily using pharmaceuticals. And I'm not anti-pharmaceutical, but at the same time, I mean, there are a lot of great drugs out there, but I do feel like that sometimes that's the quick band-aid, for a lot of people. But unfortunately, there can be a lot of side effects with that. And so I love that today, you're going to give people some strategies that they can do to help remove the pain, that again is going to help them take ownership. So I'm excited about that. And gosh, there was one other thing. Oh, I know I was going to ask you, just because I was just curious. So this traumatic event, and for me, it was having surgery and having putting in stupid breast implants, created some autoimmune. And then I think having another quick chest surgery, from having them put in, I think that was, I think surgeries can sometimes be a traumatic event for people. But you talked about the stress and your headache and how you were in bed. So leading up to that event, I'm just curious, did you see warning signs that you were kind of pressing the limits of your body too much? And just talk about that. I'm just curious, because we might have some listeners who are maybe getting to that threshold where their bucket might be about to overflow, and maybe you can say something to keep that from happening, just on reflecting on your own journey in that season. So
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
just
happy
curious.
to share that. Yeah. So when the actual vision loss happened, um, it was probably, I would say, a good, I'll give it, again, my timeline, because of because of what happened, is not as clear as I would like. So I'm
Right.
going to say 9 months. 9 months to a year leading up to the event of the actual vision loss happening. I was exhausted, first of all. Exhausted. My pain level, my pain was like 15 out of 10. Like, honestly. And my whole entire day consisted of trying not to be nauseous and vomit all the time. That was my day. So I basically, and this literally happened for 9 months. And I was teaching at the time. I was an adult educator, so I was in the classroom.
Okay.
So I'd get up in the morning and I would lie in bed and I would think, oh crap, I got to get up now. Okay, how's this gonna happen? How's this gonna work? Am I gonna throw up? Okay, well, okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, and slowly get up, drag myself into the bathroom, right, to get ready, go to the bathroom, whatever, shower, take a Gravol so that I could get through getting ready for work, right? Get myself, oh, I'd cry in the shower. Every day I would cry in the shower. It was a daily thing because I was so stressed and burnt out. And go to work and get through my day with many times taking Gravol. I couldn't really take ibuprofen because for the headaches because that would interact with the Gravol and make me sleepy and groggy and couldn't do my job. So I couldn't take that till I got home. Got home, changed out of my clothes, put my pajamas on, took Advil, ibuprofen, went to bed. My husband would come home. I would maybe eat dinner with him, and then I'd go to bed. And that basically was my whole entire day. So I basically just got up, functioned, left, came home to bed. And I did that every single day. And the thing is that on top of that, like I wasn't sleeping because at the same time, I believe that at the same time that all of this stuff was happening, the fibro was starting to present itself. So I had pain in my hands and my feet and my legs, and I couldn't sleep. I was exhausted. I was irritable. Like I was a bitch. Like, pardon my
Yeah.
language, but I really
Yeah.
was horrible. It affected my marriage really, really badly. I mean, thankfully, we are together and everything is fine, but
Yeah.
I'm surprised. There's think
I can
about it.
relate to that. Yeah.
You just kind of think, oh my God. I say this all the time. My husband is a saint. Like he
Yeah.
truly is.
Oh,
He just
mine
puts
too.
up with everything. And there
Yeah.
were days that, like I was like, oh my God, I can't even believe that he's still here. Like
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
So that kind of was everything. And I just was really irritable and short with everybody. And I just was unhappy with everything. But the thing is that when you're in stress, and I think it was stress, but it was also a burnout, is that you just are trying to function.
Yeah.
And if you're at the space, like, and this is for everyone listening, if you're at the space where you're just trying to function and get through your day, there is something wrong. You need to figure it out and get some help. And burnout and stress connected to work is real. It is very, very real.
Yeah.
And I don't care. This is me, my no BS part. I don't give a crap what your employer says.
Yeah.
You need to take care of yourself because this is the thing that I've learned. They will replace you tomorrow. When I was off on sick leave and I left, so I came into my classroom in the morning. I drove myself to work, not really sure. Like my vision was going. I was having lots of trouble reading and seeing things. And a colleague said you should get glasses, which I did. It kind of helped, and it helped a little bit with the nausea, but really didn't. And so I come into my classroom in the morning and I flicked on the lights. Nothing. I can't see anything. And I'm thinking, oh my God. So I waited for a second and the vision came back in one eye, which was lovely. The other eye, nothing. And I dragged literally like I slid myself along the wall of the hallway because I had to go to the second floor to my manager's office. And I went in in her office and she's like, "You don't look so good." I'm like, "I can't see out of my eye. I got a raging migraine. I'm going home." And she was like, "Yeah, well," I'm like, "Later." And I literally, that's what I did. I went later and I walked out. Don't know how I got myself home. Went to bed, and then the next day, that was a Friday. The next the Sunday, we were in Toronto with my family and we were having brunch. And I remember this so vividly. And I'm like, I am so nauseous. I don't know how I'm going to eat this brunch and get home in the car. Anyway, soon as we got home, I went and laid down. 20 minutes later, I said to my husband, I don't feel so good. Like, I don't feel very good.
Yeah.
So we went to the hospital. They gave me some meds. And then the next morning was when the vision loss actually happened.
Wow.
But then I just ended up, they thought I had brain tumor. They thought I had
Oh,
MS, there's some kind of cancer. Like they had no idea. And what ended up happening was I got diagnosed at an ophthalmologist, so an eye specialist, right? Eye surgeon, um, saying that I have what's called central serous retinopathy.
mm,
Basically, what that is the fluid in the retina leaks through
mm.
and causes blurred vision. Now, it's very common. And for people that have a high stress level, who are like type A personalities
Yep,
and
like
stuff
me.
done, right? My people, right?
Yep.
So they have it happens all the time. But the thing is that our brain, when we look at something, our brain takes its binocular vision and it turns it into monovision. That's what our brain does. So we don't actually see one image, we see two out of one out of each eye, and the brain creates one for us.
Mm,
That's how we see.
yeah.
But in this condition, and then with this condition, the CSR, many people have it, but they don't know they have it because their brain is still making the one image for them.
Mm,
Whereas my brain was like, nah, we're done. We're tapping out. We're not participating in this anymore. You need to figure some stuff out. We're going to
wow.
put you in bed. And so I ended up literally in bed. And I'm not kidding, Dawn. I had a migraine
Mm,
for 4 months. I'm not kidding. The only relief I had was when I went to the hospital and they would manually push the Demerol or whatever they were giving, tramadol, whatever they were giving
yeah.
in my vein, not through a drip, direct.
Mhm.
20 minutes of relief, it would make me pass out. And when I wake up, my husband was carrying me to the car and the migraine came back. Like that's
Wow.
the only relief I ever got. It was horrible.
Mm,
Horrible.
gosh.
So
Yeah.
if you're feeling, so yeah, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you want to cry all the time, this is a very big indicator that you are stressed out and you are burnt out.
Mm,
Crying and bursts of anger, things like that, that utter exhaustion, those are your keys. Those are the triggers that to tell you that there's something going on and you really need to look into fixing this and changing it and
yeah.
being
So good. Well, and again, I think especially, coming out on the other side of COVID, I think especially the last couple years, I think every person has been impacted stress level wise from COVID. So I think more than ever, this is something that's going to be extremely helpful for people, like you said, to just kind of take inventory. And I connected with your story so much. I mean, I was in bed for months as well. And I had headaches and stuff too, but mine was more like massive sinus pressure and pain, and I had horrible light sensitivity and things like that too. But it's interesting, just going back to what you tell your brain, right? And so when you were sharing your story, I connected so much because that has been part of my healing, is switching my thinking, because I would wake up in the morning, no joke, just like you, and I would, the first thing, instead of waking up and being grateful for another, oh, the sun is shining, oh, I'm grateful if, instead of having like a positive thought, the first thing every morning was, oh my God, what hurts today? Oh, like what hurts? Like that's what I would focus on. And when you start your day with your brain focused on what hurts, what is wrong with you, I mean, you're literally speaking death over yourself. Do you know what I mean? And so, I think that's been a big part. Is I literally, I mean, I'm in my bedroom right now, so my desk is, but I literally, by my bed now, I have like inspirational quotes and things, so that when I wake up, I look at that and I'm like instantly inspired and have positive things. And that's just been one of my little strategies. But so I want to go back to, so here you are, you're in the season, you have this horrible migraine, extremely sick. So what did you do to, like, so here you're miserable. What was the thing that kind of clicked for you to where now, you live pain free, you're on the other side. And I do believe like our struggles and our suffering serves a purpose, because now look at you, you're out here sharing your story and you're helping other people. And I'm the same way with breast implant illness, just really trying to bring that to light. But what helped you go from where you were extremely sick in bed to now where you are today, living without pain? I just would love to hear that part.
So I would love to tell everybody that as soon as I got sick and then I got better, I was like, oh, this is amazing. I make all the right choices now. That's not what
Yeah.
happened.
Right.
That's not how life works. So
Exactly.
what happened was, it was progressive. I went back to work, and I really started working on, mindset and minimizing my stress, and really removing myself from work, because so I do not like the expression work life balance. I think it's
Mhm.
horrible.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like
I agree. I
life
agree.
work balance,
Mhm.
because our life is the most important thing, not our work. I,
Yes.
I don't I don't live to work. I
Mhm.
work to live. That's all. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
live to work. So really thinking about that separation, in that this is my work time and this is my personal time, and really trying to change that. So I slowly started to modify what I was doing as far as what I was putting into my work. I
Mhm.
went down to part-time teaching.
Mhm.
I started playing roller derby.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Best thing I've ever done in my life. If you haven't done derby, you all should try roller. It's the best
Yeah.
sport in the entire
That's
world.
so cool.
It's so fun. But I started doing that, and then what happened was I was ended up being the head trainer for my team. I don't really know how that happened. Maybe my teaching stuff. I don't know. My father was a competitive bodybuilder in his younger
Yeah.
years. Maybe just my knowledge. I don't know. So then
Yeah.
I became certified as a personal trainer, because I was like, I need to help my girls, my team,
Right.
learn some things, so I should have some education. So as soon
Right.
as that happened, then I started getting friends saying, can you train me? And I was like, sure.
Mhm.
So I started this side business of training people.
Yeah.
And as time went on, then I started thinking about, I want to improve my health and my wellness, and I need to learn a little bit more about this industry. So I ended up getting a mentor, and he's been in the industry for 30 plus years, and so he mentored me, and that was in 2018. I was with him. 2018? Yeah. 2017, 2018. And one of the things he said to me, so at that point I was part-time teaching. So I'd
Mhm.
gone down to part-time, only afternoon. So I had clients in the morning, my teaching in the afternoon, and then I would come home and have clients in the late afternoon, evening. And my students, as this is happening, and remember I have adult students, I'm slowly separating myself from work. And so I'm like, okay, I get paid from 12:30 to 3. So I'm here at 12:25, and I leave at 3. And so my students kind of started noticing, and they actually asked me if I was okay. And I said, what do you mean? They're like, well, like you used to be here early and stay late. I'm like, well, I have a business. I run a business. I have clients. So I have
Yeah.
to go be with them. And my mentor at the time, Kennedy, said to me, like, what are you doing with your day? Because I was feeling I'm starting to feel overwhelmed again, because
Mhm.
now I've got two jobs, right? And I'm
Right.
working
Right.
full, and it takes energy. And
Yeah.
he said, let me see your schedule. So I showed him. He goes, so you go to the school like 12 hours a week? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, 2.5 hours a day. He's like, yeah. So how are we going to replace that income? And I'm like, what? He goes, well, you need to quit. And I
Mhm.
had always said I would never do coaching and training as a full-time job. I had always said that. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Well, why? He goes, because you're overwhelmed. You don't have time for everything. You can't be both.
Mhm.
Can't be both. And you don't love teaching anymore. You are loving the wellness space. So why
Mhm.
don't you be in the wellness space? And he literally said to me, how many clients do you need to replace your income for teaching? And
Mhm.
I was like, I don't know. Well, he goes, go do some math and let me
Mhm.
know. And I was like, two. He goes, all right, so let's get two clients so you can quit your job. So in August of 2019, I quit teaching completely.
Mhm.
But the interesting thing, Dawn, is so all this time I'm working with my fitness mentor. I had a business mentor. I was working with a mindset coach who was amazing. Brenda Johnson is her name. Fabulous, amazing at what she does. And we were talking about work and my stress and how this was kind of coming back. And I was starting to have similar feelings as when the original event happened. And she's just like, and she knows Kennedy, and he said I need to quit. She goes, oh yeah. So I had already decided that I was gonna leave in 2018. I had already decided. I thought, okay, I'm gonna do one more. I'm gonna do another year, right? And so 2019 comes, January, I'm working with Brenda and I'm telling her about this plan. I'm going to do another year. I said, I'll do June 2022. I'm going to quit. She goes,
Yeah.
okay, write it on a piece of paper. And I wrote on a piece of paper and I had a session with her and she's like, so you're still looking at June 2022? And I'm like, yeah. She goes, I bet you whatever you want that you're not going to even make it to September. And I'm like, I am so going back for one more year of teaching. No, you're not. No, if you make it to June, I will be so surprised that you actually, and this was the spring of 2019. She goes,
Yeah.
I don't even think you're going to make the end of the school year. I'm like, I'm not going to leave in the middle of the year. She's like, all I'm saying is you are not going to be teaching in September of 2019. And and this is the power of the mind, right? This is the
Yeah.
power of the subconscious mind. As soon as you decide, so I decided that I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to teach. I was going to be leaving teaching.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as that happened, then I started getting more clients.
Yeah.
Then I started having clients say to me, can you train in the afternoon? I need to switch in the summer. I need to switch to afternoons from mornings.
Mm.
And I'm like, well, because I couldn't take afternoon clients because I was teaching.
Yeah.
And so everything sort of starts kind of changing and aligning for you, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, in August of 2019, I called my mentor and I'm like, I feel like I'm going to throw up. And he's like, what? I'm gonna quit my job today. He's like, awesome. Call me back when you finish. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. And I called and
Yeah.
sent an email to HR and that was it. And literally, Dawn, as soon as I called and quit and sent in my paperwork, I got 2 clients texted me and said, I need afternoons starting next week.
Wow.
And I'm like, I have afternoons. So it's
Yeah.
just interesting how things happen. But that kind of was like it was longer than I had anticipated. I worked with a bioenergetic practitioner. We looked at my gut health. My inflammation was so high that he's like, you can't exercise. And I'm
Mm.
like, what? I'm working with people, like
Yeah.
with teaching them stuff and showing. He goes, you can show a couple reps. He goes, but you can't exercise. He goes, you can't even walk. And I'm like, what? He goes, you are not absorbing anything. No water, no nutrition. Your gut health is so bad and your inflammation is so high
Mm.
that you can't, you're not allowed. You're out of movement for 3 months. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, how am I going to even do this? How am I going
Yeah.
to do my job, right? It was pretty intense and it was pretty hard, but I did really, that was also 2018. 2018 was a really pivotal year for me and really in changing my mindset and changing what I eat and changing my view of, movement and
Mm.
wellness. And like, I don't like the word exercise. I don't use it. I use the word movement, because it's got a lot of, for people that have chronic pain, when you say the word exercise, they
Right.
immediately shut down. And
Yeah.
so languaging is also very important for yourself and for others.
Yeah.
But it was a slow progression. It took me a while to learn because I was like, I'm just gonna do whatever I want, and then I'll just have a flare up, and then I'll be in bed, and then I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I did it. And I think a lot of people do that. They just
Mm.
kind of get in this cycle, and they're like, okay, but if I prepare, and this is where the danger lies.
Mm.
I'm gonna do XYZ on Saturday and Sunday, so I'm gonna prepare myself on Friday. I'm going to make sure I have naps on Saturday and Sunday, and I'm going to have an off day on Monday because I'm going to be in bed. And that's what people that have chronic pain do. So if you're listening and you're like, "Oh that sounds familiar." Okay, you are in a cycle and
Mhm.
this is the cycle that needs to stop because you're preparing to be unwell,
Oh, yeah.
right? But because you're coping, you're
Mm.
not thriving, you're not living, you're just existing.
Yeah.
Right? And so if that's where you are and you're like, yeah, that's kind of how my life goes is I got to prepare for a flare up, which is what I did all the time. Um, this is not life. And
Yeah.
you're going to prepare for a flare up. Like I turned 50, um, last year. And so when I was diagnosed, it was in my 40s. So
Mm.
I'm going to like late 30s, early 40s. I'm going to live like this and prepare for a flare up for the next 50 years.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's not no,
Yeah. That's
not at
crazy.
all.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah, it was progressive, to get to this point, but you need people to guide you and to help you.
Yes. That's the key right there. I mean, yeah, I so appreciate your transparency with just sharing that you didn't have all the answers and you knew that you needed help. I think that's so, so important. So I'm just curious because I turned 50 last year as well. So when's your birthday?
September the 18th.
Oh, okay. I'm July 2nd. So that's awesome. Well, cool. Well, again, so many great nuggets there. I think some of my big takeaways were that, you had to get really honest with yourself about where your stress was coming from. And I think it's so great that had the mentor and the people in your life that were able to speak that truth to you, that this is the source of your stress. And and for those of you guys listening, I'm a former teacher as well. And I mean, gosh, as you were talking, I'm like, oh, I remember every day, just as soon as my last student would leave, I would lock the door, turn off the lights, bawl crying. And I'm not a crier, but I was so stressed and so miserable being a teacher. But, I had 4 kids at home. I needed the income. I couldn't just, in my brain, I had told myself, I can't just quit. Right. And yet we both were able to walk away from those stressful careers, and we're thriving because of it. You know what I mean? So again, we're not telling you quit your job, but at the same time, if you're very, very stressed and your job is a part of that stress, please remember that, you can manifest things in your life. And, I do believe that we all have lots of different gifts and talents. And, just the fact that you have now, kind of morphed into this personal trainer and things that you probably 15 years ago would have said, I would never be that, and even what I do today, with my business, I would have never, 15 years ago thought that this is what I would be doing today. So just being open to that. But so, you know, so basically, as I think about just, you evolving from this horrible season of pain to now, living pain free. So some of the key things I'm hearing is that you reduced stress big time, right? So you changed your job situation. You didn't just abruptly quit, you kind of phased it out, right? You employed some mentors and coaches to help you with your mindset, right? And then I also heard you say that, well, and then you started moving and being more intentional with movement. The roller derby, I mean, so you added a new hobby that was exciting, and got you moving. And then you also touched on, you changed, I thought I heard you say, just even your eating habits. So let's touch on that for a minute, because I know just from a lot of my research and just what I do in the wellness space, that there is a connection, to autoimmune issues and your eating habits. So what are some changes? What did the old you used to eat like, and what have you evolved to today? I would love to hear that.
Yeah. So I just want to hit the stress thing just before we move into the
Yeah.
so what I tell my clients, because personal trainer, I do movement stuff, but it's not really, I do more coaching. I just say personal trainer because people know what that means. But
Right.
so when it comes to stress, what I want people to do, so everyone that's listening, what I want you to do is I want you to make a list of all your stressors. Okay, write them on a piece of paper. And then what I want you to think about now is I want you to think about the idea that stress comes from 2 sources, internal and external. Okay? There's lots of research on stress, but I like to keep it very, very simple. Internal, external. So my external stressors are the things that I don't really have control over. So other people, their responses, their opinions, what they say, what they do, schedules, traveling, airports, COVID, like I don't have it. Those are things I don't have control over. Okay. And when we think about external stressors, we can't really control them. We think we can, but we can't, because oftentimes it's other people. Okay. With internal stressors, those are things we can control. So my thoughts, my emotions, my actions, what I eat, how I move, and I have control over those things. Okay. So when you look at your list, and this podcast is an example of an external stressor, because all I can do is provide value to your listeners, answer the questions that you ask me, provide some kind of insight, hopefully, or inspiration for people listening. But at the end of the day, I give 150% to this moment that we're together. And at the end of the day, the listeners can go, yeah, she's awesome. Or they go, yeah, Fran's not for me. And I have no control over that. So all I can control is coming here and being and giving as much as I can. Yep. And in the end, whether your listeners like it or even you like it, is really out of my control.
Yep.
So sometimes people say, you go on podcasts, aren't you stressed? I'm not stressed at all because I have no control over the
Yep.
outcome. All I can do is show up and give my best.
That's
So
right.
external stressors I really can't control. Internal I can. So I want to go back to that list that you made of all your stressors. And now you're going to go through it one by one and you're going to label it I if it's internal and E if it's external.
Mm.
Once you finish that, you're going to cross off all the external ones because you have no control over them. And I do this with my clients all the time. I've done this in workshops. I do it all the time. I do it with myself. When you do that and really look at that list and decide, okay, this is really an external stressor, like my spouse, my kids, those are external stressors. I
Mhm.
think I can control them, but I know that really I can't.
Yeah.
I can kind of try to guide them to the answer or the action that I want, but ultimately they choose, right? When you take those external stressors off, I have had people that I've worked with, I've had clients that I've coached, and they went, I have like two things that stress me out. Yeah, because you're worrying and stressing over everything that's external that you
Mhm.
cannot change. So let's work on the things that are internal. So that's a very practical tool that you can use
Yeah,
to
I
deal with
love
your
that.
stressors.
Mhm.
The other way to deal with stress, and I know you're asking about food, and I'm going to get to it,
Yeah, no,
is
you're good.
I want you to think about breath and how
Yeah.
you breathe. So I want
Mhm.
everyone, yourself included, Dawn, I want you to close your eyes. If you're driving, don't close your eyes, but if you're
Yeah.
close your eyes, and I want you to just take a quick scan over your body and see if there's an area that might feel a little bit of pain or a little bit of discomfort or tightness or tension. And when you find that area, what I would like you to do is put your hand on it if possible. Okay. And then all I want you to do now is we're going to inhale through our nose and we're going to exhale through our mouth. Okay. So when you inhale, you're going to inhale relaxation and exhale release. I'm going to inhale relaxation and exhale release. And again, one more time. Inhale relaxation and exhale release. And now just see, how does that spot feel now? Is it a little bit looser? Is it a little bit more relaxed? Do you know what did you
Yeah.
feel that? And we
Yeah.
only did
Yeah.
3 breaths.
Right.
So there's receptors in our hand that give energy. So find that spot that's stressful or that has some discomfort and breathe and allow that spot, because by touching it, we teach the brain to connect to the muscle to relax.
That's so
So you
good.
can use very simple breath
Yeah.
work.
Well, I love that because I mean, I've done a lot of breath work and I know there's so much power in that. But just like you said, applying your hand to that area, that's like, I love that. That's a great, great strategy. So, yeah, thank you so much.
So you're welcome. Now to
Yeah.
food.
Yeah.
So, I honestly, I've been gluten free. Okay, so I've been gluten free for 20 something, 25
Yeah.
years, something like that. So there are foods that are inflammatory and they
Hmm.
cause inflammation in the gut. Gluten, dairy, sugar, corn, and soy.
Yep.
They cause inflammation.
Yep.
And there's lots of research to back it up. And I know there's also lots of research that says it doesn't affect anything. And so you, as listeners, will choose the one that you would like to follow. But I know for myself that sugar is a huge inflammatory food for me. So if I have sugar, my inflammation level increases and then I get pain.
Mm-hmm.
So I would really think about what you're eating. So I always tell people when I say this, they're like, "Oh my God, those are all the foods that I eat." I'm thinking, well, then that might be where the problem. No,
Yeah.
that could be where the issue is. But
Yeah.
what I say to people, pick one to get rid of.
Yeah.
Just pick one. So if I'm going to go in order of hierarchy for people, I'm going to say sugar, gluten, dairy, soy, and corn. That's the order that I would put them in. But for me, gluten is always number one. I don't have it. I haven't had it for 25 years. I mean, there's so many options out there. But
Yeah.
you have to think about what's happening with the gut health. If your gut is not healthy, which means you are not absorbing what you're eating. So this is where we have to think about our poop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have to know what's happening, and are you regular, meaning 2 or 3 a day?
Yeah.
That's regular and formed and not pain and no gas. Like you shouldn't have a gas. You shouldn't have bloating after you eat. That's not normal. If that's what you're experiencing, you have some bacteria in there that are basically they're having a party. Every
Yeah.
time you give them things, especially sugar, they're
Yeah.
like, woo, let's party. And when you try and eliminate it, what will happen is your body will get very angry at you and
Yeah.
you'll get pain and you'll be grumpy and you'll be tired and
Mhm.
irritable and you just won't want, you might get breakouts because you're detoxing stuff. You might have skin issues that come up, dryness or things like that, itchiness, because your body's detoxing, but the bacteria in your gut are like, we don't like this, so we're
Mhm.
going to make you feel very uncomfortable. So this is the thing to notice is that when you give something up, so let's say you give up sugar, then you're going to get this reaction from the body that's like, we don't
Mhm.
like that. This is not the way that we do things anymore. We
Yep.
don't like to change. So
Yep.
you have to be mindful of that. This too shall pass. It
Yep.
will
Yep.
change. But the thing is that when you are in a pain cycle, and when I say pain cycle, I don't mean flare, because what I mean is you people that have chronic pain, you are up here for pain. So you're at like a 9, let's say 8 or 9 out of 10. And when you have a non-flare or a normal day in quotation marks, you come down to a 5.
Mm.
And then you have a flare and brings you back up to 9. So you're never ever at 0.
Mm.
So, and think about when I said before, I was at like 15 out of 10.
Yeah.
So when I got to 8, I was like, this is fantastic. And my husband was like, yeah, it's pretty good. Now, you know what a painful time is for me, a flare? I'm at a 3. And my
Wow. Yeah.
husband even asks me, he'll say, like, I'll be like, oh, babe, I'm in pain. And he's like, are you? Are you really? And I'm like, well, why would you say it? You know, and I get very
Yeah.
defensive. He's like, I'm just asking if you're really in pain. I'm like, yeah, I'm in pain. He goes, what's your number? I'm like, 3. And he's like, 3? Psh, 3. Because I'm used to being at 0,
Yeah.
like a 1 if, I do a lot of movement or, you know what I mean? Or overdo
Yeah.
it. I'm at a 1. So for me, 3 is like, whoa, oh my God, call the ambulance. That's
Yeah.
terrible. But in real life, it's not. But when you're in pain and you're in inflammation, you're just there. You live there. So any little down swoop makes you feel good. You're like, I'm only at 5 today. That's fantastic. Which it is, but you're still in the inflammation cycle. So
Mm.
you actually have to eliminate and heal the gut. So sometimes even things, Dawn, like legumes. Legumes are a very hard to digest food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you have gut issues and you're not
Yeah.
absorbing things, the black beans,
Yeah.
chickpeas,
Heavy.
all that grains, any
Yeah.
kind of grain,
Yeah.
quinoa, I know it's a superfood and I love quinoa, but when you're in
Yeah.
inflammation and your gut is not healthy,
Mhm.
quinoa is not helpful.
That's right.
So
That's
you have to really look at what it is that you're eating and how it impacts your body. And the thing is if you constantly are giving it things that it doesn't like and you're in an inflamed state, you're constantly inflamed. So you don't
right.
actually know what not having inflammation looks like because
Right.
you don't know what that is. You don't exist in that area.
Yeah.
So you really, when you can actually eliminate it, so I say, like I said, pick one,
Mm-hmm.
sugar, get rid of sugar, okay? And do it for 2 weeks, even a week. I've had clients that have done it for a week and that have arthritis and gout and other
Yeah.
fibro and stuff, and I've gotten messages from them after 3 days and they've been, oh my God, the
Yeah.
swelling in my hands is down after 3 days of just not having it. And after a week they're like, oh my God, like I don't have that much pain now, like went for a walk without pain. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, because you're healing your gut and you're really reducing the inflammation. It will
Yeah.
take time, like 7 days. I mean, of course, is not going to fix everything, but if you're always inflamed and then you take out
Mhm.
those foods that cause the inflammation and pain, then your body can start to heal itself and recover.
Yeah.
So, yeah, be very mindful of what goes in the body. And I would say you probably experience this with your clients. Everybody
Mhm.
has gut health
Oh
issues.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Everybody has inflammation and poor
Yeah.
gut health.
Yeah.
Unless you actually have healed it, you have it.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
if you have any kind of bloating or gas or anything, like you
Mhm.
shouldn't have gas after you eat. Like your
Yeah.
body should absorb the food it needs and eliminate the rest. There should be no
Yeah.
gas and bloating. And
Mm-hmm.
if you have that, then there's a gut health issue.
Well,
So,
and like you said, I think too, just the regularity. Like I work with so many people that they don't go number 2 every day, or maybe they only go once a day and they think they're regular. And to your point, like, no, you should be going multiple times a day. No, that's so good. And gosh, what else was I gonna say? Dang it, you said something. Now I lost my train of thought. But I'm so glad that we had this discussion about gut health, because that is like a brain in our body as well. And and I love that you touched on the grain issue, because I was one of those people in the wellness space that I ate a lot of legumes. I thought quinoa, all those things were good, but yet I was really suffering with a lot of inflammation. And I do work with a great doctor now that really brought to light the truth about when you're in that inflamed state, you've got to get off the grains, you've got to get off the sugar. I ate a lot of oats. I ate gluten-free oats, and I thought this is awesome. But I was constantly bloated, constantly had stomach issues. So I had to give up the oats. And I mean, my stomach issues have massively, dwindled just by, making some of those tweaks. And and we don't want to speak to like a certain diet or anything on here, but I will say this, that the doctor that I'm working with, he does believe very much, and I've seen the positive benefits of a keto diet. And keto is it can be a healing diet. It's not something, this is just, again, his research and his perspective. It's not something you should do all the time. He believes in diet variation, that we do need to kind of change up things in our bodies. But I have personally just seen some benefits of getting rid of the sugar, the grains, and kind of having more of a healthy fat, lower carb kind of intake, thanks to the keto diet. But anyway, so okay, cool.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
I don't subscribe to,
Yeah,
but
I don't.
I'm gluten free though, so that
Yeah,
would be my
right.
diet
Yes.
perspective.
Yeah.
But the thing, oh, I've lost my train of thought now.
Well, and I was gonna say I'm the same way. Like, I am not like, oh, you need to be
No, no,
keto or
no.
whatever. But
Oh, I know
I'm
what I
just,
was going to say. Yes, sorry,
yeah,
Dawn. What I was going
yeah.
to say, when it comes to digestion, so this is something that I learned that I didn't really realize, and I learned this from my osteopath. And osteopaths in Canada are very different than in the States. So if you need an osteopath, you got to come across the border, because
Okay.
ours, like yours, are doctors of osteopathy, but they're really doctors and they do a little bit of osteopathy. Ours
Right.
very much are only osteopathy, and it's a
Yeah.
very different. Anyway,
Yeah.
different podcast. But what I learned from my osteo was greens, lettuce, and things like that are very difficult for your digestive tract. And if you
Mm,
have inflammation, very hard for your body to digest. So when
mm,
you actually go to the bathroom, you might actually see pieces of food that are coming out.
mm.
And that's another thing. Check after you go. What's going
Yeah.
on in there?
Yeah.
Like if you
Yeah.
can see food, you're not digesting that.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
that's a
and I,
trigger. So that's important as well. So
yeah.
yeah, the guy, I don't prescribe to any particular diet per se, but yes,
Right.
again, when you know what affects you, and you only know that by taking it out,
Mm-hmm.
and then you
Yeah.
can do a test and put it back in and see what happens. My husband was for years was like, I don't have to worry about being gluten free, and our whole house is gluten free, everything
Yeah.
from like skincare products and hair products to
Yeah.
food. And I said to him, okay, that's fine, but I'm gluten free, so we're not buying gluten.
Yeah.
So this is how it's going to be. And now when he eats it,
Mm,
he feels the effects of it, because
yeah.
he doesn't have it every day. It's not what we have in our house. So he'll go somewhere and they'll be like, there's rolls or whatever,
Yeah.
pizza. I have no idea. Something that's got
Yeah.
gluten in it. He's like, I'm going to eat all the pasta.
Yeah.
Go right ahead. But then he's like, man, I don't feel good. Yeah, because you
Mm,
ate gluten and never eat it. It's
yeah.
out of your system.
Yeah.
So once you remove it, then you know how your body should feel.
Yeah.
And then when you eat something, you know what the trigger is right away.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it is does take time to track it and learn about your body, but if you listen, your body will tell you what's going on.
yeah. Well, and I think the powerful just takeaway from all of this is that, unfortunately, a lot of doctors are not trained in the connection of food to pain and food to our health issues. And so, they just, I mean, I read a lot of books, and I've got a master's in English, and I'm a big nerd when it comes to research, and they don't get nutritional training. And
No.
so, because of that, they don't know when you come in and you've got all these pains and you have all these things going on, they don't think food is medicine. They don't think to say, maybe you should get off the grains, maybe you should get off the sugar, that's causing your inflammation. Instead, they say, hey, take this pill, take this medicate, whatever. And so again, that's the heart of this podcast today, is you are hearing from Fran, someone who has taken ownership of her health and said, you know what, I'm going to start using food as medicine and make tweaks and changes that are specific to me and see how I feel. And so again, if you're listening to this and you are living with a lot of pain, just know that your diet can be a big piece of that. And you may have to remove things and just kind of test things out and see how you feel. So I love that we've kind of morphed into this topic a little bit. But I want to move on to another question. So, because I think this is a big one, just can you talk a little bit about the connection between pain and people's emotions, because there is a huge connection there. So let's kind of move over to that lane.
Okay, so again, we're gonna go to the simplistic version. I'm not getting into all these. There are so many things you can read out there. So basically, our body stores our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to think about, as you were growing up and raised, how were you raised? Were you allowed to cry? Were you allowed to say that you were upset about something? Or did you have to keep your mouth shut? Were you told that crying showed that you were weak? Or that, when you cry, like when I get frustrated, I cry. That's what happens to me. Or if I get very angry, which I don't get very angry very often, but when I do, that's what happens. The emotion comes out, and it comes out in tears. And so when I was raised, I was told, no, we don't cry, and we don't talk about things that make us upset, and we keep all that stuff in. So all you're doing is suppressing these emotions. Your body has to do something with them. So it can cause pain in your body. It can cause sleep problems. It can cause eczema. It can cause acne. It can cause fibro. Like, all of these emotions that we have in our life and in our bodies have to be released and expressed. And if we don't do that, we keep them inside, and our body has to do something with it, right? And it often results in causing pain. So there's a great book. I don't know if you know Louise Hay. Do you know Louise Hay? You Can Heal Your Life. So she recently passed away at, I think, 90 something. Anyway.
What's the book title again?
You Can Heal Your Life.
Okay.
She's got lots. She's got probably hundreds of books, but that's one of her main books. And her whole process is about thoughts and emotions and how they connect to the body and how we experience pain. And so there are things that are going on. So I want you to think about it. And some people will be like, this is kind of woo-woo, and it's not woo-woo because there's lots of science behind it. But we have energy that runs through our body. And if we have any blockage of energy, we get pain, because the energy can't actually move. So those are the ancient meridians, right? Or if we look at the chakras, this right here, the heart chakra and my chest here, this is connected to stress, and this is connected to love. And if you feel stress or you don't feel love, you will feel tightness or you will feel tenderness in this area because you are holding on to this emotion. And the biggest piece of work that I have done personally, and I do with my clients, is the act of forgiveness. Forgiving other people is very, very important to releasing trauma and pain in your body, and asking for forgiveness from others. So receiving it as well is very, very important. And we are taught, when somebody hurts us or we are upset or angry or whatever, they break our heart maybe, if we don't think about it and we don't talk about it, we have released it. It's done. That's not true. We actually hold that in our body. So until you actually forgive somebody and release the emotion and feel the emotion, this is the thing. It's not a cognitive experience. It's an emotional experience. You have to feel the emotion attached to whatever that situation is and truly forgive the person. And the best way to do that is when there actually is no emotion left. You have to go. So I always say to people, you have to go through it to get through it. And that is the most important piece. And so if there's anybody listening that you're like, okay, I'm doing all the things and I'm moving and I'm talking to a therapist or I'm seeing somebody and I'm eating well, I'm reducing my stress, and you are not getting to where you want to go, my question is, are you dealing with your emotions? Have you dealt with the negative emotions that you hold on to? And that is everywhere, Dawn. So I want you to think about the people that are in your life. We all have at least one person, maybe, hopefully we've gotten rid of them, but maybe not, that is negative about everything. Everything's a problem. And those people, and so this is my strategy for you, those people like response. So when you're with those people and they start going on the negativity, all I want you to do is go, mm. Nod your head and go, oh. Do not contribute. Do not contribute and do not engage, because what's going to happen is those people like the interaction.
Yeah.
When they don't get it from you, they're going to go to somebody else.
Yeah.
And eventually what happens with relationships, and this is where a lot of the negativity and the negative emotions and thoughts come in, is the people around us. When we stop engaging with them, those people will remove themselves.
Yes.
You won't have to do it. You won't have to say, sorry, Dawn, we're not going to be friends anymore because you're too negative. You're just going to say your things and I'm going to go, and not say anything to you. And eventually you're going to be like, man, Fran's not giving me the impact that I want. She's not interacting with me. I need some drama. Like, I need that.
That's right.
She's not doing it for me. I'm going to somebody, and those people will leave.
Yeah.
They will remove themselves. But when we don't deal with the emotions that we have personally, that we've stored, our body manifests pain.
Yeah.
It does. There's so much research out there about pain and emotions and how our body actually stores that trauma. So yeah, You Can Heal Your Life is a fantastic resource. Dr. Joe Dispenza also has some great resources. A book called Becoming Supernatural. So he's actually a medical doctor, but also deals with emotions and thoughts and how that affects the body and pain. So that's really important. But forgiveness, you need to forgive. And we feel justified to not forgive. And the thing, one of my coaches said to me once, I don't know where he got it from, he might have read it, but he said, you holding on to anger and resentment towards somebody else and not forgiving them is like you drinking poison and expecting them to die. Because it's so toxic for us. So just release it. I mean, did they wrong me? Sure. Am I upset about it? I was. Does it matter now? Not really. Because we all have our own strategies of how we were taught to deal with things and that's how we were raised. And so whatever tools we were given were the ones that we were given maybe from parents or caregivers or whoever.
Right.
And that's the tools that they have. So if they hurt me, was it intentional? I don't know. But they were dealing and living and existing with the tools that they were given by their caregivers. So they can only do what they can do. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes.
I'm not excusing bad behavior or abuse or anything like that. But the reality is it like, think about it. It's a cycle. They're in a cycle of abuse. That's what they know.
Yep. And we can break the cycle. I mean, that's the thing, is that we can take ownership of that and break the cycle. I mean, I come from a family of a lot of addicts and alcoholics and, a long history of that. But you know what? I've been intentional that's worth stopping that cycle, here. So no, I love that. And I already bought that book. So while you were talking, I went on Amazon, just so you guys know, because I'm so intrigued by that. It's only $10. You can heal your life.
It's a great resource.
Well, and as you're talking, I mean, again, like I've shared, I mean, I'm on my own healing journey. So I kind of selfishly do this podcast for myself too, just to, get around amazing people to fill my cup. And, I know, like I never cry. I'm not a crier. Like I hold on to a lot of emotions. And, I think that the older that we get, our buckets get a little more full and you have to address those things. And so I know for me, I know when you were talking earlier too, just about that kind of workaholic, phase that you were in your life. That's one of the big reasons that we moved to Florida last fall. Was the beach is my happy place. And it is the one place that I can relax and that I can just unplug. And so I live 3 miles from the ocean, from the most beautiful ocean out there. I mean, the beach that I live at is pure heaven. And, there's so much power in just grounding, just getting your toes in the sand, and then just the powerful effects of just getting sunlight. And I know some of you might be listening going, well, I can't move to Florida. And I would challenge you and say, maybe you could, hey, I picked up my family and it did bring on some stress, but it's been so worth it. But just even getting out in the sun daily, just the powerful effects of vitamin D. And there's a lot of impact there with helping reduce inflammation, grounding after it rains.
Yep.
Yeah, after it rains, going out barefoot. I mean, we've had a lot of storms here, and I'm like the weirdo neighbor that goes out barefoot and walks around in my grass after that. Yeah. But I know we've been talking for a long time, and it's so funny because I told Fran before, I'm like, okay, we like to keep these 30, 40 minutes.
Sorry.
No, but it's not your fault. Like, everyone listening, I hope you're just like me. Like, this could go on for hours and it's phenomenal. So, I mean, trust me, I would have tried to land the plane sooner if I was like, this is just, getting too long, but it's been phenomenal. And just lots and lots of takeaways. So, but as we move kind of into your last question, so we've covered so many great things today, Fran. And again, the heart of it is we want to help you, with strategies so that you can live a more pain-free life. And the reality is, anyone listening to this, you're probably dealing with pain in some way, whether it's internal, external. And I know we've already given you so many great tips, but from your experience, from your clients, your own personal journey, Fran, what are 3 things that you want to equip people with to help them minimize their pain? And I know we've covered a lot of different things, but let's keep this very simple and specific to 3 things. And then along with that, I would love for you to just kind of give a little plug for your website and your tool that you are offering today as well. So, yeah.
So 3 things that I would say that everybody should be doing to minimize your pain is, number 1, find the trigger for your pain. What is the source of the pain? And then once you know that, you can work on reducing it and hopefully even eliminating it. So what is your trigger or triggers? That's very, very important. Number 2 is, my husband says this to me, there are lots of things to think about, but there's nothing to worry about.
That's good.
So if you are a person that thinks about a lot of things, my tip for you is you're going to set aside a time every week, and it's going to be your worrying time. And you're just going to make yourself a list of all the things you want to worry about. So I have a client who does it at Fridays at 4:30 for half an hour is worry time. And she makes a list. And she said, but when she gets to her worry time, she's like, okay. And she blocks it out. It's in her calendar. And she just looks at her list and she goes, oh, that's not even important anymore. Oh, that fixed itself. Oh, so she goes, when I get to my stress time and my worry time, usually most of my list is gone.
Wow.
But so really think about, there are things to think about, nothing really to worry about, but set aside some time if you feel the need to worry. Okay, so give yourself a schedule and appointment for that. So that's my second one. So
Love
1,
that.
you're going to know what your triggers are, so track it and figure out. Number 2, you're going to set aside some worry time every week. And then the third thing I want you to think about is, I would really, really love you to breathe and move. I don't mean lift heavy weights. I don't mean go for a 10K run. I mean breathe through your nose, exhale through your mouth, inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth, and move your body. Whatever that looks like for you. I love Qigong, has been a huge change that I've incorporated into my life, and it has reduced my inflammation like
I've never even heard of it. What is that?
It's like Tai Chi, but it's a little bit more relaxed.
Okay.
It's based in martial arts. It's a series of movements that you do, but
Okay.
Qi is your energy, and Qigong helps you cultivate your energy, and you use what you need, and you take what you need from the universe and from the earth around you. So
Yeah.
it's a very mindful practice. It's a moving meditation, basically, with
Yeah.
breath work.
I love that.
So
All right.
move it. Those are my 3 tips.
I love it. I tell you what, tip number 2, that is genius. Like, I've never, because I can be a worrier. Like, I find myself sometimes, my mom's always said, like, 99% of what you worry about never even comes true. So I always hear my mom in the background saying that. But I love that quote that your husband, lots to think about, but nothing to worry about, and scheduling worry time. That is so, so genius. So I love that. All right. So let's let the listeners and the viewers, how can they get in touch with you? How can they connect with you? just share all of those different ways. And then I want to give you kind of just the final mic drop moment to share just kind of some parting thoughts with everyone before we close this down today. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So you can find me on Instagram, Fran Garton Pain Coach. And I also have a website, frangartoncoaching.com. Those are probably the two best ways. You can message me through Insta or you can email me through the website. I provide a lot of different services. My key service actually is my one-on-one coaching program. It's a 12-week coaching program, and I work with clients to, identify what is going on. So basically, we identify what your triggers are, we reduce your inflammation, we get rid of negativity, and we reduce your stress. And all of those things, by doing those 4 key things, your pain will go down. And I teach people to live pain-free. But the reality is, whatever your situation is, and this is sort of my final thought really, Dawn, you
Okay.
have the power to change things, and
Yes.
you have to want to
Mm-hmm.
have something better.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't want to change things, or if you say to yourself, oh, it's too hard, or it's going to be too many things that'll be uncomfortable, my family won't like it, or what, well, your family doesn't like you. Like, your family's not happy with you now because you're in pain and you're grumpy and you're irritable and you don't want to do anything with them. Like, and you're canceling things and you're not living your life. So right now, your family doesn't really like you. They have to because they're your family. They can't just leave. But the thing is, they don't really like the you that you are right now. And that's not your true self. Your true self is the person that lives without pain. The person that knows what their triggers are. They know the things that might cause them some stress, and they change their environment to minimize all of these things so that they can live pain-free. That's who you are. You are not designed to live in pain. That's not who we're meant to be. We have pain periodically, but we don't live in it. So you have the choice. It's completely up to you. And myself, Dawn, we have a huge network of people that we can connect you with and we can help you. And, I always do a free, no obligation pain call with people. So if you're interested, you can schedule that through my website or through my Instagram, and we'll talk for 15-20 minutes and I'll give you some suggestions and strategies. No obligation to work with me. I just want people to live pain-free, and I'm happy to help them in any way. And if you go to my Instagram and website, I'm just trying to make sure I'm right. I think I'm right. There is a pain-free quiz that you can do. And it's just a bunch of statements and you just check them off yes or no. And depending on what you select, it will give you some suggestions on where you might look to make changes to reduce the pain and what might be going on with you.
I love that. I appreciate that. I had to mute myself because all 4 of my crazy dogs just decided to bark. So there must have been a delivery or something. Maybe my Amazon book's already shown up, right? But no, thank you so much. And I just want you to know too, Fran, and just all of you guys listening, that her pain-free questionnaire, your quiz, and just ways that you guys can get in touch with her, I should have prefaced this, will be in the show notes. So you guys can just look in the show notes if you're listening to this as a podcast. It's down there, also on YouTube. So definitely go check that out. I know that I did. You have a phenomenal website. So just lots of great resources. Just thank you so much for your time. And, and I have to say, I think this is my longest podcast ever, but I say that in a loving way because it's been phenomenal. And I just think that you went way over and beyond just even our topic today. Just really diving into some things that I think are going to really add a lot of value and really help a lot of people. And it just shows a lot about your heart. And I'm just, so grateful for just your willingness to pay it forward, and just really, really appreciate you today. So just thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I just think it's people like you, who are out there, who've lived it, who've gone through it, who've come out on the other side, and who are brave enough to speak about it and to take time out of their busy lives to educate. That's how we're going to heal. And so I just really, really appreciate you, Fran. So guys, as always, it's a privilege and an honor to spend time with you. This show drops every Monday. And of course, you guys can always go check out my website at dawnfunk.com. And if you just click on that HealthyU link, If you are listening to this podcast, but you're not actually getting the notification every Monday, go sign up for that. My assistant, Katie, is amazing, and she makes sure that, everyone gets those emails with the links so that you don't miss a week. And as always, too, I know that, as you're listening to this, I'm sure that, I'm a spiritual person. So, to me, it's God who puts it on my heart. Sometimes I listen to things, I'm like, oh my gosh, so-and-so needs to hear this episode like this already today. I'm like, Fran, I have a long list of people that I'm like, they've got to hear this today. And so if you're listening to this and you can think of people that need to hear Fran's story, please share this with them. Please send them to dawnfunk.com, have them sign up, or just, send them the link for this specific episode. But we want to help impact as many people as possible. So as always, thank you so much for listening today. And maybe you want to re-listen and take some notes. I know I've got like 5,000 post-its here I need to transfer to a journal, but again, thank you, and God bless all of you guys. And just thank you so much for being on here today, Fran. Just really appreciate you.